them all in Colombia like on Sunday, but we backpacked them and bought them, so hopefully you could see through it a little bit.
How was it different here in the cupping? How it cupped compared to the lab back home?
I think
2,000 meters above sea level.
Yeah. Well, our lab's actually in Armenia, which is 1,500 above sea level. So I thought they cupped pretty similarly. I thought the water was okay. Just clean.
That's what we say about Norwegian water. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think it was a problem at all.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, so we're waiting for the. Do you want to tell us what we cupped? Yeah.
Sure. We cupped an array of blends that we build from individual deliveries. So the first 4 coffees were blends from Huila, Nariño, Tolima. And then one of the ones from Nariño is an interesting project. The Tolima one's an organic coffee. And then the 4th one on the table is a project that we've been working on where we worked with a group of producers in Yacuanquer, a municipality in Nariño, and started challenging the producers to pay the pickers double the going wage, and we would go and we would help train the pickers, showing them the bricks degrees and stuff of the cherry and like the cup quality and how much it varies. Whoa. Yeah, and how much it varies on how much quality varies, and so we're paying the producers a higher stable price. In exchange, they're paying the pickers double what they would normally pay them. And then there is just an array of microlots. The next 3 were from Huila, and then the last 3 were from Nariño.
Any comments on the coffees before we move on? Which one is your favorite, Tyler?
I like the Nariño Micros 10. I liked 4 a lot. I thought 5 was alright too.
Yeah. Are you paying more for those coffees or than others?
All of these got the microlots. Yes, we pay a minimum price. Back to the carga conversation, 1.2 million pesos. Most of these were brought in at like 1.4 million pesos, and then the blend,
just to remind us, where are we started? So what's the
market now, or no?
Yeah, not what. I guess that's different because in Colombia they get more already, right? Most than the market. So
then the sea, yes, they get a little bit, but it's really relative.
But if you say 1.4. What's that compared? What would they give?
The market price right now is 680.
600, yeah.
680 to 700. So the microlot producers in here are getting 1.4, between 1.2 and 1.4, and then the blends between 1 and 1.2.
What does that mean in the local society? One farmer that you happen to work with, I don't know how they met you or how you found them, and then suddenly they get double the price for their coffee.
I think it's an interesting thing. To me, it's been positive because other people are like, wow, okay, so if you put more effort into your coffee, you can have access to these prices instead of just the market prices. And not only access to different prices, but prices that are divorced from the sea, so they don't follow the market up and down. And so I think it's been positive in that sense. I think that producers are more motivated to make changes by other producers than by anyone else when they see the real example working.
You asked a series of questions here and then. What would happen if we showed these numbers? What would happen if the roasters knew what this means to the... What's the answer? What happens?
Yeah, I was actually, when I was asking those questions, I'm thinking not about showing numbers. So I think one of the difficulties that we face in transparency and convincing consumers to value our coffee more and value the work we're doing for sustainability is that we show them numbers that they don't understand and speak a language. When we talk, we have some clients we work with that, we've helped produce traceability reports with FOB prices and return to origin metrics and things like that. At the end of the day, the customers normally don't ask anything, but when they do, they don't get it. They're like, okay, so you paid $3.50 for this, but it's like $19, what's happening? And we've even had situations due to the exchange rate where the people we work with have been consistently paying the farmer more and more, but when they publish the equivalent in dollars, it looks like less and less and less. And so I think it sends a really confusing message, and I also don't think it's the product that we're really buying from the farmers when we negotiate with them. So I think more than that, it's important to create kind of a more holistic picture of what sustainable pricing really is and what it gets done. I think consumers, you know, more than understanding an FOB per green pound of coffee price, are interested in understanding how, you know, how are you actually helping improve the income of the farmers whose coffee I'm buying through you. And so the questions were largely about how can, you know, what can we, knowing this, then communicate to our average consumers, coffee people, and then of course among ourselves as peers have a conversation in the coffee community.
You mentioned a bit how this is related to quality. You pay more if it's a bit higher quality.
Yeah.
And I think everyone in here would, and already are, maybe, but would pay happily pay a fixed price or a higher price than the, like, okay, let's add $1 or $2, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
But then okay, so we're doing this every year to the same farmer. What I think, in my experience, is that when we go out and sell this coffee on the market, even though sometimes we say that the market or the average consumer doesn't really understand what the quality and pricing, but they are really sensitive to quality. So suddenly if we charge a higher price for something, but it doesn't taste better, just because we said, oh no, we're going to work with the same farmer every year and we're going to pay whatever it takes, then they won't buy the coffee. And then we sit with a situation where we make less money, and then suddenly we don't have a sustainable economical situation for the roastery.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there needs to be a minimum level of quality for us to be able to pay this, but I think this is all about saying, if we reach this minimum level of quality, this is a market in which we can all move in. Every once in a while there's situations, you know, we try to pair farmers up with specific customers and get every single lot that they produce to those customers when possible, or, you know, if they can't take all of it, then have a certain amount go to Australia and a certain amount go to Norway, for example. And then, you know, we'll get into a situation where together us and the client will be like, okay, that, you know, that coffee is kind of, you know, maybe below 86, and our target with this producer was everything above 86, so we can take it, but it needs to be an element in a blend, and we need to think about a little bit different pricing for that. And so I think that's, you know, that's something that is workable and reasonable. I just think that we need to understand more the impact of the prices we pay, because even at the end of the day, if the consumers don't want to pay, like I personally, as a business person, don't want to be in the business of perpetuating poverty if I know that is the reality of the prices I'm paying. So it's not an easy question to answer, but I think there are workarounds for it also. I also don't think some of the prices, you know, that we're doing an official study, by the way, like a more serious, deeper one, and we'll have real stuff in May next year. But from our initial findings, you know, there are certain regions that are more expensive than others, but we're not talking about like going and paying geisha prices for all of the coffee you have to buy now. Just talking about doing it a little bit more conscientiously.
I mean, I think you can look at it two ways. If it's covering $1 or $2 extra per kilo selling cups, it feels easy. It's nothing, you know.
Yeah.
The consumer won't even notice they're paying that extra.
Yeah.
But when you add all the steps on the way, suddenly that $1 becomes $3 and $4 and $5 on the bag of coffee, and that's where the consumers get sensitive.
Yeah.
And also, just like I guess your customers, it's hard to explain all these things. It's like, why? Quality is easy to explain. It tastes really good. Okay, yeah. I'll pay. Yeah. Any questions? No? Yes, Tim.
How do you suggest small roasters can start to support the farmers more? Like, how do they kind of connect to you guys?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what we would like to do is create a real guide. so that this actually exists, is updated every year based on research. We'd like to start in southern Colombia, and our goal is to have something by May available. And we're not trying to do it as like a private Azahar initiative. We're trying to create a tool that we can all use, Azahar being included in that, to know the likely impact of the prices we pay in different regions. And I think that we want to work with like a pilot group of people that want to use this and work together with their importers and exporters to say, okay, I want to make sure that in these different regions I'm taking these minimum prices into account, because I want to make sure that in all likelihood the people I'm working with can at least strive, based on hitting these quality things, to earn a minimum wage from the coffees that I buy, or better, hopefully better, and create these other sort of metrics that go beyond just the minimum wage earning, like minimum wage plus reinvestment and stuff. And then simply just make sure that the coffees that you bought from that region took into account this new information, and use it as a tool the same way you might say, this year I'm going to go out and make sure that everything I buy from Colombia is less than 11% moisture. So I'm going to make sure everything I buy from Colombia takes into account the minimum price for Cauca, for Nariño, for Tolima, for Huila, etc. And then experiment with bringing those coffees to market, and maybe even incorporating a little bit of this discourse and the use of this tool into the conversations that they have with the people they sell coffee to. I think that could be a way.
Do you see any risks here?
Yes, I do see risks. We got a grant approved to do the initial research for this project, and the person who gave us the money asked this question. They said, well, it looks like, initial findings look like Nariño is going to get really expensive because farms there are on average less than 1 hectare. And so we're going to essentially have to subsidize their lack of scale by paying higher prices. Is not going to make buyers that are paying a better than the current price all flood just to Huila and to Huila or to Quindío or to areas that have larger farms. And it is a hard question to answer, but what I said is that I think the biggest problem with the supply chain right now is that it's badly organized. And so you have very large companies like Nespresso and Starbucks that they don't go to the local bakery to buy their croissants because they know they can't afford to pay what the local baker needs to charge them. They work with more industrialized companies that can afford to make money by selling cheaper because they have the scale. But weirdly, when it comes to coffee, they go to small artisanal growers that are doing everything by hand and expect industrialized prices from them. Where I think there's a great opportunity in small roasters working with small producers when they can afford to pay the prices for those qualities. And so I think that, in an ideal outcome, the supply chain can be arranged a little bit differently, so that you have people that, either large companies for a specific product line, buying more expensive coffees from small producers that are doing a good job, or smaller quality-focused companies buying those coffees, whereas the big guys are buying most of their volume from larger producers in Vietnam and Brazil, parts of Central America. And even large producers in Colombia, there are some.
Is there a risk, maybe this is a stupid question, but is there a risk that we set a roof of the pricing? That when we create this, it's like, oh no, I follow this sustainably system here. I don't need to talk to the farmer, I don't need to see the farmer, I don't need to talk about, well, what happens if you do drying on table, you can increase the quality even more, because I'm good. I bought myself out of the situation.
Yeah, that is a stupid question.
Okay. Finally, someone tells me the truth.
It's not a stupid question. It's a really good question. I don't think so. I think if you notice, it's not up here anymore, but the last slide, there were different columns, and the first column said poverty line. And I don't want to, at least for our company, we don't want to be exporting coffees that are in that column, but I think it's a useful column for certain companies in the world to be like, Jesus, we're not even making the poverty line metric. The next one is minimum wage and its equivalent, which by the way includes benefits. So in Colombia, you pay minimum wage plus 40% of that minimum wage in benefits. We're trying to make sure that a farmer can strive to at least make that same minimum metric, because it's legal. And then the next slot is minimum wage plus money for reinvestment. And then the next one was just a bunch of question marks. So I think that's where we can say, what else do we want to strive towards? So yeah, I think that's all in the conversation how we implement it. I see the risk in that, but I think that work, if we work smartly, we can also be aware of this not being a ceiling, but being a step towards something better.
Yes, Susie.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Susie.
I think this is fascinating data and a really interesting way of communicating to the end consumer about prices of coffee. How do you think you could scale this, considering just the complexities within Colombia itself, without oversimplifying?
Yeah, so I think the end result needs to be something relatively simple, but before we get there, I think we need to complicate things a little bit and not overlook the nuances. The way that I think it could work is that you do the research on cost of production and productivity regularly. We start by doing a literature review, and then we also do real research in the field. And we do it on a region by region basis so that we can have the guide that I showed you guys an illustration of. So we have an idea of kind of what these are. Then taking that into account, hopefully the tool is simple enough for experienced and non-experienced newer coffee buyers across a whole range of companies to be able to use. And when they work with exporters to say, I want these taken into account, please. Then I think we can have a place like Emory University, for example, is interested in helping with this, and they're doing something right now called the Transparent Trade Coffee Initiative, where they're like collecting FOB data and publishing them in an anonymized way so that people can see what FOB prices are being paid for different quality ranges. And I think they can, for companies that want to say, hey, we're doing this, they can submit their purchases and say, we took, locally, we took these prices into account in our purchasing, and that can kind of be like a validator. Then what I think the next two things that need to happen is that as a community, we all need to, the people that do use it and believe in it, put pressure on each other in a healthy way to be like, hey, this exists, don't ignore it anymore. Someone asked me a little bit ago kind of what stuff I was hearing at these sustainability conferences. I was specifically talking about RICO. And every time I go to RICO, a lot of times people talk about the same issues, productivity and price. We go around and around in circles, but no one changes everything. And at the end of the day, everything is painted as being so complex that how could we start to understand? Because it's all different in every single country. But I think that we can actually produce a tool, and then in places like RICO, we can be like, don't come around here talking about sustainability anymore if you don't pay attention to real info that exists. Just real info that is the product of scientific research. And so once that exists, then we can also make a decision, the companies that have opted in, to talk about this and how we want to talk about it with our consumers. So the story isn't we're paying X amount over the market, or this is our FOB green, or this is these different things. It's we are taking into account the income that the farmers we work with make. And we're all making sure that the prices we pay them, at least for our coffees, understanding the general economic context of their region, allow them to earn a minimum wage or better. Because we would never pay less to that to our own employees in our own companies in our own countries. And then I think that we have, if enough companies work together, there's going to be a large enough marketing or social media footprint where, we could talk about doing this, and we have to come up with a symbol or a way of doing it. Maybe we serve all of our coffee in one color cup for a year. I have no idea. But make something easy so consumers can make an almost lifestyle choice of, I want this coffee and not that one. And then hopefully the other companies that don't do it are going to be like, damn, we have to do this. I think that could be a way to start.
All right. I think we need to round off. Is that okay? Sorry? Yeah, fine. Perfect. Thank you so much. You're doing a great job. Thank you, and good luck in the future.